Your passcode has been confirmed. If you need technical assistance during your call, press *0. After the tone, please state your name, followed by the pound sign. I'm sorry, we did not get your name. After the tone, please state your name, followed by the pound sign. I'm sorry, we did not get your name. After the tone, please state your name, followed by the pound sign. There are 7 parties in conference, including you.
Hey, we're going to talk about DOR. That seems to be one of DOI's favorite things. I've been involved with a lot of offices that are doing. Right now, actually tonight, I'm flying to California to. The secretary is going to be there to work on the reorg for BIE, Bureau of Indian Education. So reorg is a big thing. So lots of times we just announce them. But this article and this presentation is explaining that we should consider 4 stages: planning, making the announcement, monitoring what people think about the announcement, and then responding to maybe what we're hearing, people think. You want to? No. Page down? Yes. Okay. So stage 1 is planning and trying to get some idea of what's already on the employees' mindsets. What are, and then trying to understand kind of where they're at a little bit. Then considering the communications to make it kind of stick, to whether you compare it to some past event. You may have remembered when the last director was here, they said such and such, or you may have recalled that, like in BIE, because I'm working with that, they may relate it to what is that? No Child Left Behind, right? Which is a big deal, and actually they're going away from that, right? So that was a real compliance thing, and now they're going into much more. DOI is, or BIE specifically, is going into much more kind of facilitating the Indian schools. So they might begin by saying, you may recall, No Child Left Behind as a past event that kind of anchors the learning into it. Or similar situations, BOEM and Bessie, right? They're like these sister organizations. So, well, Bessie has already gone through that now, and BOEM, we're going to do X, Y, and Z, right? So there's some similar situations. Or personal expectation, just whatever. The idea is just kind of getting a little finger on the pulse of where the people are at that we're going to make this announcement to. Okay? Any thoughts on that? Okay. So planning, again, this is just, simple points about the planning is using phrases, using images, have it somehow, I like the 4th one now, resonate, have okay, this is going to have some impact on me, and hopefully it's going to be a positive impact, right? And of course, making sure our presentations are accurate, and if possible, they might even remember them after tomorrow.
So the planning is thought of before you sort of get the property.
Exactly. You probably have already made your decision.
Yep.
Now you're planning how to announce it.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. And if you want the people you're announcing it to take some action, that's yeah, and that means also trying to be a little specific. Like I know this is not the DOI thing, but I was working with a group that was doing a fundraiser, and so in terms of actionable, right? So everyone's in the room. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to give those donations. So you want people with forms and pencils. You don't want to just say, yeah, give a donation, then they just kind of, well, where do I, at the end of your little pitch, where do they do it? Right? You try to make it as easy as possible for them to take that action.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine in the DOI context, we're doing some moving in the solicitor's office.
That's a good example. That's good. I wish that had come up last month when Hillary was and Jack were at the session.
Mm-hmm.
Still working on that.
I know. I mean, I know that there's planning going on. I don't know if all happened, but, you know, it's like a perfect.
But that's a good point. So even perhaps communicating before a decision is made, you know, can be helpful as much as possible. And you guys, you solicitors know more than anybody practicing in this building that sometimes there's certain things you can't communicate, right, for legal reasons and, you know, legal implications and things like that. But I've often told managers that even saying that is helpful. Instead of not saying anything, saying there's a lot more I wish I could communicate, there's things in the works, but, you know, for various reasons, you know, I'm not allowed to at this point in time. But I find that even saying that is helpful as opposed to just saying nothing.
I would agree.
Yeah, I was surprised. I get, you know, when I just flipped through this, I got before, I didn't realize that planning occurred after a decision. I thought it was something that happened before a decision and maybe gave the opportunity for two-way communication.
Yeah, well, I think that's
not apparently what this is.
Well, the only reason it's not is because the original article was based on literally the name of the paper, decision downloading. You already made the decision how you're going to download it, but you're absolutely right. As a management principle, as much as possible, you know, like what does Stephen Covey say? No involvement, no commitment. So if you can, and when as a person who I do a lot of strategic planning, we use what we call the accordion process, which is you have a small group working on something, then at different iterations you explain it to the larger group, get their input, then go back into the smaller group, and you know, do as many iterations of that as you can. It's usually a really good process, like you're saying to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult to do without just creating more of a storm than the surprise. But
yeah, well, it takes it's good to have someone guiding who knows what they're doing, and also if you have enough time. You know, some decisions have to be made quickly. By the way, can you hear everyone on the phone?
I can hear fine.
And you can hear the other people speaking as well, right? Not
Yes.
just me. Okay, great. Perfect.
Oh, there are other people? Oh, no, just kidding.
Linkable, accurate, resonate, and memorable. Okay. Next slide. So then the actual announcement. Obviously, you know, it's good to choose carefully who's going to make the announcement. Right? Like even here in Solicitor's office, okay, well, let's say it's like October, right, or, you know, late October. Well, is Hillary going to make the announcement? She's political. She won't be here much after that. Would it be better if someone who's a career, you know? So even sometimes maybe the top leader may not be the right, you know, you just look at these time, place, and circumstance and consider who's the best person to make the announcement. We already talked about linking it, and I like this point. I think it comes up a little later. Oh no, it comes up later, so I won't mention it there. But naturally, trying to link it to core values and organizational missions. Just like tomorrow, I'll be in Riverside, California, and I'm sure, you know, when the secretary gives her speech, it's quite likely that she's going to link it to the overall DOI mission towards Native Americans, and then probably specifically to, you know, the mission of DIE. Because that's just a natural thing that I think she does often when she talks about especially Native Americans, but parks, you know, ocean energy, whatever. Yeah.
what behaviors?
Link message to behaviors, core values, and the organization's mission. It may be that you're talking, let's say the decision is about wanting the people you're talking to change their behaviors in one way or another. So that's, you know. Like, okay, for example, somehow I've gotten drawn into this this whole work on sexual harassment, right? Another thing in the park, you know, we all know what's going on, right? So the secretary's come out with her letter. What was it? Now it's been almost 3 weeks, and now a policy statement is supposed to have come out last Thursday. It's kind of gotten caught up in the office of the secretary. early next week, okay? But one of the behaviors that we've been talking about is what we call bystanders. You know, right? That lots of times people see something, but they don't say something, they don't report it. So that would be a behavior that we would like to see change. We'd like to even perhaps do bystander. There's a training for bystanders, believe it or not. You know, because that's one of the best ways to get any kind of unwelcome behavior addressed is by having people who aren't necessarily either the victims or the perpetrators, but people who see stuff going on. That might be an example of a behavior that I'd like to see changed. That's okay. And then the third one we just spoke about, right? It's really great if you can, to the extent you can, to explain why and the thinking process. And I really like to suggest to people that they really, you know, try to put yourself in the mind of the person who's going to hear this. And they're going to wonder, did you consider this? Did you consider that? So if you preempt that by saying, yes, we did consider this, we did consider that, but we still stuck to this decision because. That's what I did. Yeah. I mean, basically what we're saying here is treat the people you're communicating to with respect, that they have intelligence and they're going to think about things. You know, they're not just going to, you know, I think gone are the days where the authorities say something and you just say, you know, like so. Right. Especially, you know, places like solicitor's office, people will all, you know.
The lawyers are terrible.
That's right. We are the worst. Why do you want to do that? Well, let's do it like this instead. Can we wordsmith it like this?
Sure. If you want to have a transition between administrations, the lawyers are the first to sign up.
Are they? Oh, that's good.
Because they're trained to serve the client.
Ah, okay. I'm not a lawyer. I'm from a family of lawyers.
They're not.
I'm not a lawyer.
No.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide then. So, announcing the fourth part, and this is the part I like. I think it's good to maintain this balance. You've probably heard of WIFM, you know, what's in it for me, but we don't talk too much about WIFO. And if you can find a way to balance that, you know, in your talk, how this addresses the individual needs, but also the organization. That balance has been shown to be quite an important thing. You know, obviously, some people are going to be displeased if you just say how this is going to help the organization. And people are thinking in their minds, well, yeah, but it's going to be like 5 times more work for me, or, you know, this reorg means that I'm going to be doing 3 people's jobs, you know, whatever going through people's minds. But if you can address those 2 points, both sides of the equation, that can be really helpful. Okay. And then, how are you going to announce it? You know, we're familiar probably that there's different learning styles. Right? Some people like learn by seeing, some people by hearing, some people by doing, you know, kinesthetic learners, right, et cetera. So we might think of what tools do we have? Does everyone read their emails? I remember I asked a group of leaders last week how many of them had were, you know, read carefully Secretary Jewell's letter. It wasn't everyone. Because, you know, it's one email, and I don't know how many, what?
200 a day.
200 a day? Okay, so one, yeah, exactly.
Might not be exactly that.
And then you're in a meeting, and you ever heard, you've been in a meeting, and someone said, well, didn't you see the email? Well, you know, right?
Haven't been.
Right, so a town hall, is that a good way to make announcements sometime? Teleconference, video conference, face-to-face, lobby displays. I don't know, am I missing any? Can you think of other ways to announce things? One might be, it's kind of inferred by the face-to-face, but kind of the trickle-down idea that, you know, the leader mentions to their direct reports, we mention to their direct reports. Unfortunately, often what happens is it's uneven. Some people are really good at communicating it down and other people aren't. my experience, it's not always uniform. So, if it, depending on how important the communication is and the nature of it, you may want to do several of these.
I don't know how effective it is, but the CFC, they normally have those handouts they put in your mailbox.
Oh.
So that you have either a piece of paper to look at or to throw away, that kind of thing. But
okay. A hard copy.
They had to look at it, to
yeah.
decide to not read it.
Yeah, I mean, I have, I don't know if any of you have seen it. I have the Ombudsman for the Solicitor's Office. There's like a postcard kind of thing, and it has my phone number and what I do. And I have some, because I ask people, how do you find out about it? And they say, oh, often I'll save the card. So, yeah. I'll add that to the next. Thank you. But the basic idea is thinking about this. Okay, how are we going to get to everybody? And I've worked for years with the Office of the Special Trustee for American Indians, and a third of the employees are out in remote 2 or 3, 4 people offices, close to or on reservations. So how do you get to them? It's easier to get to the DC people or even the Albuquerque people. How do you get out there? And DOI in general has outposts like that all over the place. Does everything from Denver office always get to, what is the, Boise, is that the, or is it, no, which is the,
Billings?
It's Billings, it's Billings, yeah. So, like that, so plan it out and make sure it's really going to get out to everyone. Because I do a lot of traveling to these small offices, and those people there, especially in Native American country, they can't put a face to a name for HR or EEO or or anything.
That happens here.
That happens here. Yeah.
Unless you go to the training.
You don't know. Right.
Most people are that service you by electronically.
Well, that's one of the reasons I do these kind of presentations, so that people get to see, hey, there's an outlook, and you actually walk and talk.
You're probably going to get to this, so let me take you off track, but it seems to me the biggest issue that I see is the and notice of change travels informally, and so that people already have their perceptions as to what's happening, and may not pay attention by the time that it actually goes out.
That's a great point.
And miss the nuances.
Yep. Can I give you a post-dated check on that? Because it's coming up in a couple of slides. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, we'll move on. So 3 and 4 we kind of put together, monitoring and responding. And as you may know, just because you send a message doesn't mean it's received in the same spirit, in the same understanding as you sent it. If anyone who's ever, communicated with this significant other, or to speak of a teenager, has certainly had this experience. So one thing is kind of along the lines of what you're saying, although it gets to it more in another slide or two, is, okay, we know who, on the org chart, we know who the leaders are. But who are there informal leaders? Are there people that that people really listen to or talk a lot, right? And who are they? And you may, as you're planning to monitor and then respond to the announcement, maybe they're good people to check in with. How are Bill? How are people taking this? Because they have an ear to the ground, or people listen to them, one of the two, right? Or both. And it's good to allow a little time, not a long time, but a little time to digest before responding. Give it a little time to see if then.
People run through if they're upset about something.
They go through the 5 stages of grief. Yeah, right.
Hopefully no decisions are that.
No, they're not Elizabeth Kubler-Ross level of, right? But yes, I mean, a simple example of when we didn't do this in OST was in Masthead, which is the office building where third of the employees work in Albuquerque. One day, everyone drives to work, and they see at all the entrances a for lease sign, which was just a standard. Apparently, we found out later it was just a standard thing because the lease had to be renewed, and they do that as a standard process. But what did all the employees think? That's right. We're out of here. We're going to get ripped, and we're out of here. You know.
You don't want to.
No, you'd like to get that. You'd definitely like to find that out ahead of time. Yes, that's right. You don't want to let that seep in too long. Exactly. So this is just a point about. This is actually one of the reasons that I have a job, because I thrive. If there weren't conflicts, I wouldn't have a job. So this is great for conflicts. That in any communication, when you think about it, we only get half the picture. Right? If I'm speaking to you, I know my intention, but I don't know the impact I have on you. And when you're speaking to me, I'm aware of the impact you have on me, but I don't know your intention. Right? So this is a good thing to remember in any kind of communication. I had a case, I think I mentioned this, I use this often in my presentations. I had a case where such a simple thing, a second-line supervisor went up to an employee and just patted him on the back and said, haven't seen you in a few days, everything okay? And the second-line supervisor walks away thinking, I'm a really good supervisor, I check on everyone, I just want to encourage everyone. Meanwhile, the employee turns to their colleague and says, who the hell does he think he is? I told my supervisor that I was on sick leave for the last 2 days, and, he's getting all over my case with this syrupy smile. And as people gossiped about it, when I was brought in, it was like the Hatfields and the McCoys. People were either taking one side or the other. And it all was, the intention didn't match the impact. And I think that happens a lot. So that's one thing to keep in mind, whether we're talking to a friend or whether we're dealing at work with communication. You guys still live on the phone?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So more about monitoring and responding. The third task. Be a little. Sometimes people have thought. This is a cliche in itself. Thought-terminating cliches, right? You ever, like, oh God, here we go again, right? In other words, there's no specifics, there's no nothing, it's just, oh God, this is what, and I'm sure we, out in the field sometimes, it doesn't matter if it's solicitor's office, parks, anywhere, there's this thing about DC and the field, right? It's just natural, right? People in the field have their feet on the ground, they're actually dealing with people in DC, know the political realities, dealing with budgets and all that, and they both will often say to each other, oh, God, they're so out of touch with reality. Or the DC people, they have no idea what we go through to try to get them a budget. They're not telling the truth. But you can think of other just kind of those cliches that pretty much kind of stop thinking. Right.
So you said you prefer to take them on, like, how?
That's the next slide. But that's a good question. How do you deal with
I'm tracking then, at least you know I'm tracking, right?
That's right. How do you deal with thoughts? That's right. That's the first thing is to know that they exist. Right?
Okay.
By talking to, having an ear to the ground, or having at least some people have an ear to the ground. And then, how to deal with them. Okay. One thing is first of all, like we just said, to know that they exist. And then sometimes it's best is to openly discuss them. Has anyone here ever dealt with my colleague, Saman Hussain? So Saman is this amazing, you know her? Yeah. Saman is amazing at when she's running meetings and she picks up some vibes. She's the kind of person who can very expertly announce the elephant in the room and get people talking about it, right? So that kind of, just throw down, hey, I've heard people saying, that this is just another one of those, you know, DC decisions that without taking regions into consideration. Let's talk about it. So something like that, just putting the card on the table. And it can trigger, hopefully, thoughtful discussions. And again, like I just said, invite discussions, and hopefully we can honestly say that, you know, the decisions that you didn't like before, how this one might be different. Let's discuss how it might be different. And, you know, for leaders and managers and supervisors, obviously this takes a little longer than just telling people this is the decision, you know, deal with it. But hopefully the reward is worth it, you know, of a more engaged office and people feeling that you've respected them.
Right.
Yeah. It's a big deal of respect. You know, Aretha Franklin wasn't the only person who said you need it. You know, when people feel that their intelligence is respected, they'll, yeah, you know, a happy employee will often work harder and produce better results and make the workplace a much more nicer place to show up every day. So this sends out those signals. You can read those yourself. And that is a good signal to send out. And again, I would say, especially in a place like Solicitor's Office, where you have these people who have, you know, advanced degrees, totally, really, you know, sharp people, you know, and lawyers who are trained in being a little skeptical and cautious. That's your training, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, I think about this moving thing because I'm hearing about it.
Yeah, and you're also trained.
We're going to add 500 new employees from whatever, another agency, and so does that mean all the lawyers are going to double? Everybody's going to be more doubled up than they are, or whatever that turns out.
That's right. And if I recall, again, I didn't go to law school, but my brother's family has. You also trained to look at what could go wrong. Right? Yes, we are. Yeah. Right. So that's why, you know, maybe doubly important, this kind of thing for dealing with lawyers. And by the way, as I mentioned, I don't know why I'll bring this up, but just because I wanted to reproduce as much as possible the same experience you guys are having in this small group as when we had like 40 or 50 people here with Hillary and Jack and everybody. One thing that I did bring up at that meeting, I just told them straight out that the biggest complaint I get in the solicitor's office is from admin. And I'm not talking about anyone in this room or anything, but there's some admin people who come to me and they say, you know, sometimes the lawyers really treat us like we're a third-class citizen or something like that, or that we're not, you know, we don't have law degrees, so we're not very bright or whatever. And so, you know, that respect thing, you know, comes up.
It seems to me that it's hard to convey the second bullet if you have, if this all is...
Which second? The top of the second?
Last. If the audience, the employees, hear about this after it's already decided, if they want to engage in serious discussion.
After it's already decided.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
How do you...
Well, just remember we're keeping this in context that it has already been decided. Obviously, that would be another presentation about how to, like we said, the accordion idea or different ideas. But let's say it has already been decided for the sake of this presentation.
I want my employees to have the perception that I want to engage in serious discussion. And I can do that by simply discussing cliches and inviting a discussion as to how this is like the past phases.
It's a very good point, valid point. Let's say top leadership made a decision, and you're, you know, for the sake of, say you're Lynn, okay, you're a regional solicitor, right? That third side, the regional. Yeah. Okay. So now she didn't make the decision; it was made in DC. So she has to communicate it to her people out in Portland. Right? she might be able to at least have a discussion. Okay, so let's sit down and talk about how we're going to apply this, and what are the challenges, and what are the possible pluses, and, you know, at least have that kind of discussion rather, about, you know, how we're going to implement this. Yes, and what might be the possible, you know, traps that we could fall into and how to try to avoid them. And so that may not be obviously the same as, you know, because even in this scenario, Lynn didn't have a voice in the decision. But it has been handed down to her, and she's got it. So that's just an example. But you're right. Another point is about no involvement, no commitment in trying to. But, you know, obviously sometimes you can't involve everyone in a decision.
Nothing will ever get done. You have every single decision vetted, revetted, revetted.
Okay, we'll go to the next slide. And I think this is the last slide. It's just a graphic, you know, the way of showing what we've talked about. You make a plan, employees start speculating, you make an announcement, they start digesting it, you monitor, they deliberate, you respond, and they make a conclusion. Either they embrace it, they accept it, I like this one, they endure it, they reject it, or they passively resist. I haven't heard of it so much these days, but remember people would often talk about not going on strike, but slow down? Right, so you just kind of like...
slowing down the whole work product.
Slowing down the whole work product, yes, right. I think that's the last one, isn't it? Yeah, oh no. What do we hope to achieve? Anyway, you can read it there. And hopefully those results are better than, even if one of those results is achieved, better than just saying, this is the decision, okay, have a nice day.
Right.
And I believe that is the last one. Yeah. So, any discussion?
We have a decision-making group that Hillary meets with
Right.
And one of the things we've talked about is, okay, kind of implemented some training out there to folks, you know, to think about how to plan and download decisions, but, I don't know, can we implement that? Is there a way, do we implement that more outside of just training, or, you know, she just challenged us, is there a way to implement that so it's more in how we really are behaving? And one of the things we talked about, Lynn is in this group too,
Right.
was to look at positive decisions where that kind of downloading was pretty successful, or wasn't a fire drill. I mean, you all know how those, sometimes there's ones that go along pretty smoothly versus the ones that are sort of the chaotic, you know.
Yeah. That's good. So you look at cases. Okay.
Well, I would think. I mean, I think we were looking for input on how you might start thinking about implementing and seeing if people are actually sort of really doing the downloading and getting feedback on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, any ideas on how we might do that would be welcome, I think, too.
Well, I'm at your service if you ever want to, you know, discuss it further, you know, or even, you know, one thing that I've worked on with, and I mentioned this to Hillary and Jack when I had a meeting with them, but when I've worked with other bureaus is this point that I mentioned before about how the leader has a meeting with their direct reports, and they sometimes take it for granted that those direct reports are all going to have a cascading effect, and people down on the ground are going to hear about it. And I said, well, do you have a person taking meeting notes? No, I just see that. No, we don't do that. I just expect the people in the room to communicate it. What happens is some people are diligently, you know, taking notes, and they scan it or copy it, and they make sure everyone gets it, and other people goes in one ear and out the other. So I talk about, well, maybe would it be helpful to have someone taking minutes or notes, and maybe you briefly review them, and then those go out uniformly. You know, that's just thinking about how does something from that level that you want to get down, how does it get down to people? Because it's often you have those direct reports who are really conscientious about this, and others that are just so busy, it's the last thing on their mind. And then, of course, communication goes downward. It also goes, is there a way to how to go upward? Because that's partially that's part of my job, right? People come to me and I present it to leadership. And it would go horizontally also. I don't know how much, would you say solicitor's office is in silos, like those that are doing water rights, those that are doing Indian affairs, those that are doing whatever, or is there pollination, so to speak? Is there communications amongst those? Or in regions, does, Portland talk to Pittsburgh, or is it geographically siloed, or?
Well, I can tell you what it is from my perspective, but I'm like a 1+ year political in water resources. But I mean, we have a discrete area that we're in, but we overlap on stuff all the time. So
right.
You're trying to get expertise on other things you don't know anything about.
Like water, it's your tribal Indian rights sometimes. Right?
Totally. And in fact, we have a new water division that has water and Indian water are together in the same division. So, but, there's also right-of-ways, like I just got some right-of-ways for a dam, right? That's on Indian land. That's owned by the Bureau of Reclamation. So it's not really a water, it's a dam, and it controls water, and there's repercussions about that, but it's really a right-of-way issue where Indian Affairs might have that kind of expertise. So those kinds of things I think we cross
We bump
boundaries.
into each other a lot, but the most frequent one is between, on a particular issue, a headquarters division and a region.
In a region, yeah.
They're operating, working on the same thing.
Okay.
And what we find sometimes is we have conflicting interests and an issue with another headquarters division.
At all surprising. Lynn, did you have any thoughts on taking this to the next step, or dealing with how this could how your group can do its work?
Well, I wondered, it sounds like you're somewhat involved in the decision downloading process for the BIE reorganization. Is that a correct understanding?
Well, yeah, there's a meeting that starts tomorrow. I'm taking a late night flight, and that's with about 100 to 120 of the people who are pretty much responsible for implementing the reorg, and all the various division leaders of that organization will be there as well. And so this is a chance really for them to communicate to these 100, okay, the reorg is a done deal. Now how are we going to implement it?
Right.
Does that help? Yeah.
So it seemed to me like another possible step, I mean, we did, as Ramsey mentioned, we did want to try to identify positive examples of good decision downloading so that people have something to kind of model after. But then it also seems like the next time there is a major initiative or a major decision that needs to be downloaded, it might be useful to have you as a consultant, because now I've taken this training for the second time, and I find, I get different things out of it the second time. So it does feel like like almost having a case study, where we involve you and we say, this is kind of what we were thinking, how does this match up to what you understand to be good decision downloading. And it's going to be an interesting period of time, I guess, because we are sort of going into this transition period, so there probably aren't going to be huge major initiatives coming down. But, Ramsey, maybe we could even invite Brian to one or two of our decision-making subcommittee meetings, because I think we are talking about desk book chapters and things like that, and we need to roll those out in a way that is effective as well. So those are a couple of ideas, like actually using you as a consultant, potentially.
I'd be honored to attend any meetings if you think that would be helpful.
Can we learn also from the non-positive? Look at a decision that affected a large proportion of the solicitor's office and examine how it was handled and what the consequences were. I mean, one that occurs to my mind is DTS. We all correspondence tracking to DTS. Not only wasn't real clear why we were doing that, but we were trained by people who weren't trainers, who already intuitively understood the system and could not explain it to those of us who didn't. And then we were required to use it, and most of our clients weren't using it, et cetera, et cetera. It strikes me as a good example to examine what happened and how it could have been improved.
Well, so as a general principle, we can often learn from our mistakes. I mean, in other words, bad examples and good examples both can be educational.
Right. Well, I think that's true. That's why I was like, and the move is coming up. So how it might fit into a decision that gets, okay, so we've decided on the move.
And that's
where people are going to go.
Main interior, right?
Main interior,
right.
Where people are going to sit after being in an office for 20 years or 10 years, and now it's going to be some shifting going on. So I think it's not.
Well, probably I'm going to see a few more people seeing me about that, I'm sure. We've had a few like that again, that same office in Albuquerque. They had to reduce their footprint by half because they just, and so the whole thing, which GS level gets which size cubicle and which one gets an office and which one gets one with a window, and there was all kinds. It was intense.
Well, right. I mean, I just am hearing that already. So
I
know, but I think at least it's like being stuck on an airplane that's late. Like when you hear nothing, you just get mad. But if the pilot comes on every 15 minutes and says, I really can't tell you that much more, but we're here and we're checking it every 10 minutes, and I want you to know, you're like, okay, he knows we're sitting here, right? So.
Well, I mean, I could be wrong, but you probably hear more rumors about the move going on in the building than some people do.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't think
but I hear
normal attorneys sitting there worrying that they're going to lose their office right now. I mean,
I don't know.
Unless people are going around going, hey, you ought to be worried about this, or something like that. So.
I don't know.
Probably in your position, you're hearing more rumor about what's going on than other people, I would think.
Well, I just feel like I'm hearing it from not deputies or the political crowd, but from people in my division,
People who have gone through it before who are anticipating.
It's just because of the moves that have been happening in the building already?
Well, there's going to be moves.
Yeah.
We've had them in the past.
Right.
And for many people, they were not pleasant experiences, so they're anticipating what's going to happen to me this.
Lynn, you were going to say something?
well, I don't know anything about the move, so, but, I mean, other than that, apparently there's a big move in D.C., is that right?
Well, there's been I think most people know there's been a big construction project on one side of the building here for quite some time. It was undergoing when I got here, and so it's finally finishing up. And
okay.
We're supposed to finish, and the secretary's office moved to the old office space that was redone about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So now the hallway where the secretary used to be is empty. I don't really know, but I don't know. The admin knows the staging and so forth. But I guess my point is not so much that I have particular cares or not, but people in my division are going, well, what's happening? And it's sort of like it was announced. Okay, the secretary's moving over the weekend. Secretary's office is all moving over the weekend, and then you go, okay, when is ours going to be? I just think that that's an easy.
So,
from my perspective, to have good decision-making sort of specifications at least, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ramsey, because we in our region we call space the final frontier. It tends to be more emotionally charged than almost any other issue we deal with. So you cannot ever give people too much information.
Yeah.
You can easily give them too little. And like you said, like if there's no plan yet, then maybe Big Jason or whoever in admin just needs to say there's no plan yet.
Right. That may be right.
Well, I mean, I have a plan, but that doesn't mean that the plan's been like, it hasn't been thoroughly vetted yet. That's supposed to happen this week, I think, so. And then we can start discussing it. It's not going to be a, here it is completely kind of.
I like that. I'm like, can I borrow that? Space the final frontier?
Yes.
I deal with that a lot, but not quite. Well, I do, when there is a move, it's a big deal.
We've been known to have people come in on the weekends with tape measures and measure the different office spaces.
Wow.
But like so much change,
Yeah.
Our moves and renovations are such great improvements. And I guess to enhance the chance that we'll get out of the building in the case of a fire, there were additional stairways created and therefore fewer offices remaining. So people have gotten used to moves, meaning I will have less things.
And that's true. So anyway, I don't know. It just seems like a concrete
It
plan.
could be a good.
Maybe, Lynn, that's what our committee can do too, is kind of speak to that and get it back to Hillary and company on this.
Right. Yeah, good idea. The other thing I wanted to say on siloing is kind of an interesting group because it does have a bunch of people from all over the country, and I didn't really get introduced, and I thought we probably have like 2 minutes to introduce ourselves.
Oh.
So I'm like, I know Brian. I know your voice, Brian.
Okay.
But I don't know if other people, have known me.
In this room?
Yeah.
Jason Airwood, I'm the finance officer.
And the CLS guy. Don't forget to mention that.
Yeah, among other things, yeah.
This is Tyrone Santos. I'm the budget officer and admin for the office, but I'm in admin.
Ramsey Krupp, Deputy Solicitor, Water.
Dennis Doherty, Assistant Solicitor in the Division of Mineral Resources.
Okay.
And on the phone?
So this is Lynn Peterson. I'm the Regional Solicitor for the Pacific Northwest region, sitting here in Portland.
This is Ken Lord in Anchorage.
Wow. Hey, Ken.
Stephanie Balzerini with the Boise Field Office.
This is Sarah Foley in the Division of Water Resources.
And Scott Bergstrom with the Division of Water Resources.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. It was the first time I can actually see you, so I'm glad to put a face to a name.
We've been at conferences before.
So I think that's what I like about groups like this, when they're small enough that you can actually sort of identify people in the solicitor's office that you see maybe on your emails, but I think it's kind of important.
Yeah.
Dave.
Very good. And is that Stephanie from Boise?
Yes.
I may be coming to see you in a few weeks. I have to go there for doing some training for NPS, so I might knock on your door and say hello. Not only you, but everyone else.
That would be great. I telework full-time in Washington State, but if I am there, I would love to meet you.
Okay. All right. Well, nothing wrong with ending 1 minute early.
Good.
And thank you very much.
Brian, thanks for doing this
My pleasure.
another time.